That's why we hired you.
Thank you. Or,
I can fit it.
so is it on? Am I on? Oh, yes,
I believe so.
I'm on. Good morning. Meeting call to order. Thank you all for being here today. First thing on the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes.
So we'll.
All in favor? Motion passed. Approval of the agenda. You got a chance to look over the agenda?
Very complicated.
It's very long. Take a half a minute. Motion to approve? All in favor? Great. We're moving right along. Okay, so I assume we have a long list of public comments as well?
No? Seeing none?
Seeing none? We need a motion on that, or we're good? Okay, so we go straight into action items. And we have discussion and motion regarding MPO executive meetings, date and time.
Mr. Koletka, this is
Yes.
yours.
Mr. Colette. Sorry to disturb you.
You could never disturb me, ma'am. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
It's discussion and motion regarding the MPO Executive Committee meetings, dates and times.
Oh, yeah, this is just the regular, we have on the agenda item. Next year's meeting, it's. Yeah. And we might cancel one of them, but we'll see.
On the
Maybe.
executive meetings, in
Mhm.
terms of us meeting 9 AM or on a different date, I thought that's the discussion that we were having here.
Yep, and that was between the membership to decide.
Okay, so I think you're taking a poll.
Yes, the poll results was that the majority of the membership, which would be 6 out of 7, had requested not to have a special meeting date other than the Thursday of the board meeting. And most preferred just moving the meeting 1.5 hour earlier.
So I take it by the fact that everyone is here at 9 AM bright and early. That you're okay with that. We want to go ahead and we need to vote on that. We need to officially vote on that. Is that it?
I would recommend it.
Yeah.
Okay, very well. So may I have a motion?
So move.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Just so I'm clear, does that mean we're gonna do 8:30 or 9 o'clock?
Oh,
8:30.
8:30, great, that's what I thought.
okay, 8:30.
Get to Moonlight Diner just a little bit earlier.
All right, then, very good. And that will give us enough time to do some other things,
Yeah.
presentations and so forth during the meetings. Have discussions without really rushing through it.
Thank you.
Okay, so next item, motion to approve the 2025 Executive Committee meeting dates, and I think that's what you were alluding to. Do you have the dates that you can put up on the screen, or
Yes,
They are.
actually, if you switch from home panel to presentations,
there, there?
left corner, yep, you'll see that. And by the way, these are touch screens as well now, so you can not only use but you can also use your finger to touch. Those are the dates. Most importantly to note is Thursday, October 9th, which is our normal board meeting, that second Thursday. And then we're doing another meeting in October to accommodate the Florida Department of Transportation, because they're moving the work program forward to accommodate the legislature's newer start date in January. So every other year, this is going to be an anomaly that you're going to see. Brian and I commit, working with Alan, to try to see if we can skip the October 9th meeting as well. So we'll just have the October 30th meeting for both October and November. And then your December meeting comes back at normal second Thursday.
But for now, we are asked to approve earlier
Correct.
meeting in October and a later one as well.
Yes.
Which will take care of November meeting. Okay, great. Any questions? Any discussion? Does it fall on anyone's birthday?
Not yet.
For sure.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. September 11th, wait, September 11th?
Yes, it's the Thursday, second Thursday of the month. I know-
That would be that would be a conflict
Which one?
for me, September 11th.
A lot of people have memorial services.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so what's your an alternate date?
Mr. Collector. We can go the Thursday before, the Thursday after potentially, or if you'd like us to, and that's a lot of missing meetings, we could forego the September meeting, do August and do no August and do no September.
Maybe we should move it to the first Thursday?
The
I'm
fourth?
just asking, I'm just saying, because I know there's always September 11th meetings in the municipalities early in the morning, like, breakfast or for at those times.
Exactly. So, I mean, from a staff perspective, the fourth would work for us.
The 4th, you said, or the 1st?
Fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4.
The 4th meeting in,
September 4th, September 2025.
It would be the first.
oh, September
Thursday.
4th, okay.
Yep.
I think that would work, especially since we don't have an August and we're moving up October.
Exactly.
That could potentially work. So what do we do at this point?
And if it's the will, we'll take a motion to change the September meeting to the first Thursday, September 4th, and then we can entertain a second motion to adopt the schedule with that amendment.
Okay, can I get a motion saying exactly what he said?
Exactly what he said.
All in favor? Thank you. Motion passes.
One last quick question on this one to the executive. The dates for the full board are also mimicking this, so we'll need somebody to make the motion to move the September meeting to the 4th on the main agenda.
Yeah, that's a consent item number 8, so you'll have to pull that from the consent.
Okay. Very well. So we don't have to do anything at this meeting for that?
No.
Okay, at the next meeting. Okay, very good. So we also have a presentation. Our discussion item, rail service, US 27, history and update.
Yes,
I was really looking forward to that discussion about the trash. And
The first for everything.
We can have it.
Uh,
here.
we
we can have it here. Yeah,
Right
after.
here.
we will have it under member comment.
Sorry.
Well, you know what? It's
How to
actually,
get that in.
it is actually connected with US 27.
It's all.
Big part of it.
Okay, well, looks like we're not gonna avoid that conversation.
There's no avoiding.
Sorry.
It's not going anywhere. Trash is not going anywhere.
Literally.
Here to stay. All right, Paul, thank you.
good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Executive Committee. My name is Paul Flavian with the Broward MPO. I am the data manager. And I'm also the one tasked with Freight Transportation Advisory Committee. And so anything related to freight and rail, things like that, I'm sort of deal with. So with that, we'll give you a quick history and update of the US rail on US 27. Again, this was at the behest of Commissioner Furr. So with that, I'll begin. So essentially here, all the way back in 2008. So this rail on US 27 is not a new thing. It's been around for a while, right? So all the way back in 2008, Florida legislature made an appropriation directing FDOT to study visibility of rail on that corridor. And then actually in 2009, we actually included US rail and US 27 as part of our 2035 LRTP. So again, in 2010, FDOT began the process. They did a phase 1 study, essentially like doing a fatal flaw. Essentially, they came up with some concepts, and then they moved into around 2012 into the full study, the multimodal analysis study, what we call the PACE study, which I'm sure you've all heard about. Again, now the purpose of the study, essentially, again, they knew all the way back then in 2008, we've been growing, we're still growing, we will continue to grow, right? And with that growth comes a number of issues, correct? So again, to help meet that growing transportation need for freight, and not just freight, for passenger movement also in Southeast Florida. Another purpose was to connect Port Miami by rail with inland logistics centers that were being planned around Lake Okeechobee. Again, to remove freight traffic from the congested East Coast corridors, right? I mean, we have Tri-Rail here, we have the FEC, now with Brightline on board, is getting congested on those corridors. And again, we're seeing issues with safety. We're seeing a whole lot of issues with, those barriers being down and then traffic being, prevented from going east and west. And last one essentially was to redevelop US 27 as a multimodal corridor to accommodate rail and highway. Now, the study area essentially goes from around the Heft in Miami-Dade. I don't know if you all are familiar, but if you see the blue, I guess purple dot, all the way at the bottom of the map there, around that area. Just south of that, there's like a CMEX plan where FEC has some rail, current rail right now that connects to the Higher Rail Yard, I think connects to the port. So essentially it would go, it would go northwest, and then take up US 27 in Broward, go up into Palm Beach County, and right around where you see that black dot, there's another rail facility there. It's I think it's Florida Sugar. It has like a class 1 railroad there. And essentially, that has connections to FEC to the east, where you see the green spot, and then CSX, where you see the red spot. So again, there were 2 conceptual alternatives, right? A highway only, essentially 4 lane from the Heft to Griffin Road, 6 lane from Griffin to Old US 27 in Palm Beach, and then 8 lanes from Old US 27 to the Hendry County line. And the multimodal part looked at freight and doing the highway. So the cost estimates for this, for the highway only, were at that time, again, you got to think 2012, right? 763 million, and essentially 321 miles of new roadway, of road mileage, new bridges, intersection improvements, things like that. And then the multimodal, which includes the rail and the highway, the estimate at that time, again, 2012, $1.2 billion, 75 miles of track, 10 rail bridges, and then the number of lane miles of roadway. It was also an estimate for $5.25 million estimated for annual maintenance of that corridor, the rail corridor, that is. So the benefits that were derived from that study essentially included, it would attract new businesses and create jobs, of course, economic development. It's always, good thing. Reducing train traffic and occurrences of train crossings on the East Coast rail corridors. Again, safety, relieving the corridor. I mean, corridor is getting congested, relieving some of that congestion, providing increased capacity for essentially things like Brightline and BCR South and BCR North, potentially. It will also provide redundancy for those north-south rail corridors, right? So we have 2 now. Something happens on the east, you have an alternative on the west, right? And yeah, case of emergency. And then also some of the truck traffic could shift from existing US 27 to US 27 rail corridor. And again, some of the costs though. There was a large, I talked about the $1.25 million in initial investment in capital costs. The ongoing operations of $5.25 million, which, who would actually pick up that tab? And also, there's always environmental mitigation costs, right? Because out west, we do have the preservation area and all that. So there's other things that we would have to look at. They did a lot of agency and stakeholder coordination, obviously with the railroads, FEC, CSX, and then South Central Florida Express, which is the Florida Sugar, US Sugar Railroad, the Likes Brothers and Duda. These are big freight carriers, your Sugar, Florida Crystals, the MPOs, Port Everglades, all the ports, Miami, Everglades, and Port of Palm Beach. Also, they did outreach with South Florida Planning Council and Treasure Coast Planning Council, all the economic councils, and the Flagler Development Group, which not sure that's still the name at this time. Essentially, the general consensus of the stakeholders was that this project would benefit transportation and freight movement in South Florida. And essentially, the conclusions of the space study was adding that railroad and widening US 27 corridor is determined to be feasible within the existing right-of-way. Especially in Broward, we have plenty of right-of-way to actually do this. I think where it gets constrained a little tiny bit is when you get into Palm Beach County. And they also estimated that between 15 to 22 freight trains per day could be diverted to the US 27 road corridor. And of course, the study ended with further study needs to be done. At the time, it would have been PD&E and then to determine the class of action. But again, this study was done back in 2012. At this point, it's 12 years old and it's a little dated. Now this slide, obviously things have happened. This was supposed to be given to you in October. The CEFTEC has actually made a resolution, but it's to request that FDOT do another multimodal study. And they've agreed to do that. They've agreed to actually prioritize the funding in that study. And the MPOs are all essentially supporting that, that study to be implemented. And also, we will continue to coordinate with DOT. And again, depending on the outcome of that study, we've also agreed to prioritize whatever that next step is, the PD&E or whatever. So I think that's all that I have for you. If you have any questions, I'm ready to take them.
Please go ahead. You have this, you place the item on. the
Okay,
agenda.
thanks. First of all, thanks for that presentation. That was excellent.
Thank you.
I saw a few things I hadn't seen before at all. I guess my first question is who would this be owned by, this is on a state road, correct? US 27 is a state road.
Yes, sir.
So it's on state property. So does the state determine who has access rights? Would have access rights?
Yes.
Okay. So they would, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people wanting to use that, or they allow different, it wouldn't just be one entity that would have control over.
Right. Essentially, it's a state road, and it's also part of the SIS, Strategic Intermodal System. So again, fully state, and again, they would control or allow access to whomever. It could be CSX, it could be FEC, whomever.
It could be a blend,
It could be a blend, absolutely.
and then it would just have to be coordinated.
Correct.
And to pay for that,
Mhm.
because it's a state road, obviously you need state money. This wouldn't be coming all out of MPO, obviously, a lot of money.
Well, our hope is it would come out of the SIS funds,
Okay,
State fund.
SIS, remind me.
Strategic Intermodal System.
Okay,
The other half of the MPO funds that are captured by the state of Florida to do statewide projects.
and I was glad to see that it passed at CEFTEC, that's with Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, and us, and everybody wants to see it, and so it passed unanimously. We had the FDOT was there and put their stamp of approval on it, and I prioritized it, which is, well, I think for Broward County, this is big, for a couple of reasons. One, you're trying to do a commuter rail, through all these counties. That's going to add a lot of passenger traffic. If you have that, you're already adding, you need to try to get some of the freight off of that, because the freight trains have gotten longer and longer and longer. So they're taking longer to get through. The other part is, and this is important for the county, is by being on US 27, it also goes right by both the Broward County landfill and where the waste management is going to have their new state-of-the-art recycling. It's an opportunity to be able to divert an enormous amount of garbage as well as anything that wants to be composted up to the Okeechobee landfill. Part of the agreement that we're working on with Waste Management right now is in exchange for turning Monarch Hill into a dry landfill, that they would be willing to take the wet, stinky stuff up to there and compost it, which is pretty amazing. Having this go right by our landfill on US 27 is ideal. Obviously, that's a long ways down the road, but that's the kind of long-term forward thinking I think we all need to be thinking about. So, I mean, I look at this as a game changer on numerous levels. So thank you very much for the help on that. And, you know, Greg, I know you've helped kind of shepherd this through. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Any other comments? No, go ahead. Deputy. I don't think
You're
we
on.
have that, just, yeah.
No, I think it's a great concept. Yeah, being able to move the freight off the passenger line so we can expand the commuter transport. And also, it also helps the traffic because of not only are freight trains getting longer and longer, they also move so much slower that when you do get stuck at them, it affects the rest of the traffic for a much longer time. So I think whatever we can do, and I know the rail projects are all like big, expensive projects, but I think whatever we can do to move those forward more quickly to get them up and running, because every
That worked well.
decade that goes by without it, cost of construction, cost of, the roads getting in the way, buildings getting put where they need not be, just pushes the reality of any of this stuff coming to fruition, like further and further out into the ether. So, I think it's great. I think it's a great expansion.
Thank you. Jackie?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for bringing this to us. The option of passenger rail is also available on this
Could be.
eventually, right? I mean, because there are 3 of us here who are Western municipalities, and I have expressed before in the past that in my last 8 months of commuting to Miami, where I live out west, I actually took a vehicle to the Tri-Rail station in Fort Lauderdale and was really impressed with using Tri-Rail as a transportation mode. And I think that if there was rail service as well on 27, and unfortunately the track just goes right past Parkland, it just goes northwest up to Okeechobee, doesn't go all the way west up like towards the western part of, the central part of Palm Beach County. It cuts up to the left there. So you would really leave out a lot of that traffic that you could capture. But that's still being said, from the 27 and Broward line, 27 and 595 intersection, I think that there would still be a lot of traffic moving from 75 west that's driving down to Miami now in vehicles that would possibly take a passenger type rail service, in addition to the benefits of the moving the trash and the compost, et cetera.
I have no idea. I mean, that's one of those things. I don't think anybody's been thinking that, but it makes sense in many ways if there's enough capacity.
Actually, that is one of the things we looked at, and I know this is going to sound odd, but when this was originally proposed, I was around, and we were looking at potential rail service up to Okeechobee as a potential location for affordable housing for people working in the region as well. I mean, it just provides different opportunities, and it's just, it just provides that uniqueness to the region as well, because affordable housing opportunities, you have new industry that could be located there that, we're always looking for land for logistics centers and all the rest of it that are provided around the Lake Okeechobee area. Really a fascinating project, but it's long term.
You'll still be here.
No.
Thank you so much for bringing this to us. It was very interesting, and although it was a quick presentation, it did bring out a lot of things and a lot of thoughts that we hadn't had, and certainly the discussion on it. It seems to have a lot of benefits and certainly a lot of support from the industry. So that's a good thing.
Excuse me.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I believe we had member of the board who wanted to comment on this item, if you permission.
So I
Oh,
think it's
okay.
considered public comment at this point because it's these,
I'm sorry?
it'd be considered public comment at this point.
Okay, so do we have anyone from the public who wants to comment? Okay. Absolutely, go ahead.
I've known this project.
Right.
Concern I have is that, I live a stone's throw from US 27. Southwest Ranches is probably no more than a football length from 27. We have multi-million-dollar homes right there. We really cherish our rural lifestyle, our peace and quiet, our horses and livestock and all that. Now, when you go a little further, we start at Sterling Road, well, actually we started Sheridan, but the dump is there. So from Sterling on up to Griffin is Southwest Ranches. We abut right where you're talking about. Now, you go a little further north on Griffin Road, north Griffin Road, all the way up to I-75, and that's the western side of Weston, which has got a very similar situation, but they're probably a half a mile. I've lived by train tracks before. I'm interested to know what you're going to do for the communities to mitigate the sound, because I lived right by the old Winn-Dixie distribution center, right over, it's around the corner from here. And the noise from the trains going off on the sidings at night woke us up every night. Now, if we're not planning for how to mitigate the sound to protect the residents, that's something we need to add into the 1.2 billion.
That's something that would absolutely be part of any study.
I actually want to kind of bring up a couple of things if I can, Madam Chair. Some of the things we suggested, I've had conversations with FDOT is, what if we kind of look at this and a little more future think and say, instead of the type of vehicles we're currently using on the rail line now, couldn't we use electrically charged vehicles that, basically the undercarriage would be the batteries and these trains could be independently rolling. We could even go to the point where instead of actually doing heavy rail, it could be a painted line and these autonomous vehicles could actually move along the corridor. There's all these other things that we need to really, because this is so far out, that we can actually do some real thinking about this and say what it could look like. And that would be, as Paul said, would all be tied into the PD&E once we get there. We're looking at probably 15 years before this is going to be something that would be.
I'm 66, I'll be 80.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is why when he
Won't
said.
be able to hear anything.
You're gonna need to keep some fight.
Well, we got friends. Thank you.
Okay.
It's important to know. And when, so you're beginning the study, when would you expect
we-
construction or
we-
the project to start?
We haven't begun the study yet.
Oh, okay.
This will be funded by FDOT, and then at some point they will start the study. So we're hoping around between 27 to 31 time area.
Yeah,
40 makes more sense. 50 is even better, but
No,
anyway.
no, the study.
Oh, the study. Okay,
Yes.
wonderful.
and then the study, then you have to do some more public outreach. By the time this would even be close to be a project letting, we're gonna be a lot older. And mine's gonna be sight. I'll probably be able to hear well, but
I'll be there in my walker.
yeah.
Greg, how does the MPO ensure that we get some sort of input as far as what we would like to see in this study?
We will, well, I should say this also. This is something that's sort of like in our freight advisory committee that they've actually been real advocates for this. And one of the things that we do, we have essentially staff from FDOT. The freight coordinator is part of our committee. We have the chair of the vice president of the FEC is the chair of of our freight advisory committee. So we always bring projects to that committee. And as that study begins, of course, we'll be bringing it to the entire board for them to give project updates, what's going on. So that way your input is taken in. And also,
There won't be any input before the study begins.
Oh, we'll be working with them on the scope. Don't
yes,
worry.
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And again, this is an impetus from our chair and also, again, like I said, our freight advisory committee. We're pushing this, right? So absolutely, our input will be fully baked into whatever scope that they come up with.
I would definitely be interested in seeing the impact on traffic, truck movements. On the west side, since you won't have it on east, it has to go from east to west now. On those roadways. So I would hope that that's part of the study as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Please.
When I was thinking, I glad someone brought up the commuter part of it, because immediately my mind went into people who are moving further to the rural areas, being able to get in and back and forth. And if that is a possible future thought process, maybe during the study as well, if they can start looking into east-west connector to the Tri-Rail and the Brightline route, like even for smaller shuttle type trains, just where that can be, even if it's just mapping it out so that, buildings, warehouses, et cetera, don't get put in the way, just to figure out where we can make that east-west connection start to happen. Because without that, our lines are still gonna, people are still gonna be taking their cars east-west and blocking those roads to get from one line to the other and trying to figure that out. So
That's an excellent suggestion.
Very good. Any other comments? Those were excellent comments. Thank you again for bringing this to us. Will we be placing this on the full MPO at some point so that they can, everyone else can hear what's actually happening? Or there's no rush since this is very long term?
It's very, very long term. Your impacts today, but your comments today are going to go over to DOT. We'll have that discussion with them. It's going to resonate back in Palm Beach and Miami-Dade at those two TPA and TPO. And then, we'll eventually bring it to the full board as it gets closer to being an actual study by FDOT.
Very good. And I would emphasize that the passenger rail portion of it would be quite interesting. See how we can combine that.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Is this it? Meeting adjourned? Discussion on November 14th agenda? Do we need to do a quick discussion on that?
Well, the only thing we have to really concern ourselves on is the dates, the next year's dates.
Next 30 days, which we already discussed.
Correct. So we're good.
Okay, very good. All right. Item review and discussion draft December 12 agenda. We're good there as well?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Meeting adjourned?
Awesome.
Okay.
Oh, wait, nobody wants the trash in the.
You know, do it up front or-